Regulation G just had its third grand challenge go by, and whenever one of these happens, you know everyone is trying to cook up something crazy to reach those top spots for those juicy points. Although I didn't rank too high in this grand challenge due to a massive skill issue, that doesn't mean the Pokemon I felt would be insane in this meta was the reason for my placement. In fact, it's the total opposite. The Pokemon actually was the reason I even got as many wins as I did because my actual meta picks decided they needed a new eye prescription because the choice specs it was holding just wasn't enough to hit its damn freaking moves. I'm looking at you, Chi-Yu. No, this Pokemon, even though no one plays it, and no one probably even remembers it exists, actually got me really far into the Grand Challenge, and really did just put the team on its back. The Pokemon I decided to bring into the Grand Challenge in question? Grafaiai. Grafaiai, when paired with Miraidon, interestingly enough, actually does extremely well, and I'm going to explain to you how and why this little toxic art monkey actually carried me in this Grand Challenge. While Grafaiai's stats may not look amazing on paper, Grafaiai brings something to a team no other Pokemon can do at this moment. It's typing. Poison and normal. Yes, this typing combination is unique to only Grafaiai, as no other Pokemon in the Pokédex shares this typing. This typing is just one of the many reasons I think Grafaiai has a niche spot in the current metagame, and I'm going to break it down why this is actually so important to point out. There are a couple Pokemon in the metagame that are extremely common that Grafaiai can comfortably deal with, and two of these are actually two very common restricted Pokemon, which are Miraidon, and most importantly, Calyrex Shadow Rider. Now, how the heck does this little dude deal with these behemoths? Well, besides its unique typing, Grafaiai gets access to a lot of amazing moves, but it also gets access to two amazing abilities that lets it use its amazing versatile move pool, in Unburden and Prankster. If you aren't sure what Prankster does, Prankster makes status moves get +1 priority in the speed bracket, meaning if you were to use a move like Tailwind, and another Pokemon uses a non-priority move like Close Combat, Tailwind will go first due to the ability Prankster. Grafaiai actually gets a lot of incredible supporting moves like Parting Shot, Encore, Scary Face to name a few, which if you know which Prankster mons are in the metagame like Whimsicott and Tornadus, you'll know how annoying it is to face a Pokemon that can lock you down after you use Protect with Encore or having them set up speed control with Tailwind. But even with this incredible ability, this isn't even the one I went with for my Grafaiai set. No, I went with its second amazing ability, Unburden. Unburden activates once you lose whatever health item the Pokemon was holding, and when this happens, the Pokemon with Unburden will now get its speed doubled until switched out. Both abilities basically make Grafaiai attempt to go first before the opponent does. So why Unburden over Prankster? Well, one of the reasons is because in this metagame, abilities that can block priority moves tend to be very common, Indeedee and Farigiraf being the two most common for this. Dark types are also pretty common due to Shadow Rider being such a monster that you need some way to keep it in check, which makes the value of Prankster even less incentive if the Prankster Pokemon's job is to target the opposing side to cause disruption. Unburden doesn't have such a weakness. Here's where it all slowly starts to piece together. We make Grafaiai hold the item Electric Seed. What this item does is, once the holder is on electric terrain, it will be consumed to give Grafaiai a much needed +1 defense to increase its bulk, which will then activate Unburden, doubling its impressive base 110 speed. Thanks to this boost, Grafaiai with no speed investment actually outspeeds even timid max speed invested Shadow Rider, which is important as to why Grafaiai not only is immune to its most powerful move, but it can KO it back before it can even move thanks to the move it gets, Knockoff. Shadow Rider is times 4 weak to Dark and Ghost types, meaning majority of the moves with this type will knock it out. And since no one knows what Grafaiai even does, you basically can get a free KO on Shadow Rider with little to no resistance. As to why it counters opposing Miraidon, it's mainly due to the fact that most Miraidons you run into currently will be running Fairy Terra, and if you give Grafaiai the powerful poison move Gunk Shot, with enough attack investment, Grafaiai can actually nuke a Miraidon who decides to Terra to avoid your own Miraidon from KOing it. And because your Grafaiai is faster than their Miraidon, you'll get to hit them before they can even hit you. Now this isn't even where its typing value even stops. Oh no, I haven't even gotten to some other Pokemon it can deal with. Grafaiai can also deal with some common Pokemon you'll see, which are Rillaboom, Ogerpon, except Rockpon, and the scariest of them all, Fluttermane. Rillaboom can almost always get one-tapped by Grafaiai's Gunk Shot while also resisting any of its grass moves and surviving high horsepower thanks to its Electric Seed. Most ogre pawn spreads like the fire and water ones you see running around can't even take one gunk shot. Then there's Fluttermane, which not only is Grafire immune to its Shadow Ball, but it also resists its fairy moves and threaten back with gunk shot for a potential one shot, depending on the Fluttermane spread. This Pokemon just has so much insane value in the current meta, it's honestly crazy what this thing can do. Now that I explained what Grafire is so good, let me now go get into how I built my Grafire and how it all comes together. Grafire, as explained before, doesn't have the most amazing stat distribution, but with its acceptable attack stat and incredible speed, I opted to give it 172 EVs in HP, 172 in attack, 162 in defense, 44 in special defense, and 4 speed with adamant nature and holding the electric seed. I'll be quite honest, I kind of forgot why I gave it this exact bulk, as this team was made during the first run of Regulation G, but the attack EVs was specifically for the KOs in most Fluttermane spreads and also to KO Miraidon once it's Fairy Tail, but just know it's really good spread and has been working for me this whole time. There was a reason Pastoran made the spread, just trust the process. So the moves I decided to go with were Gunk Shot, Knockoff, specifically to KO Shadow Rider, Acid Spray, and Encore. The last two moves here were the real reason I saw the potential to run it next to Miraidon. Acid Spray lowers special defense by 2, which in turn allows Miraidon to go for hard-hitting Electro Drifts or Draco Meteors, while Encore allows Grafire to lock Pokemon that try to fake out Miraidon or try to protect from the incoming damage. This is important because since Grafire usually doesn't get the respect it deserves and is paired up with one of the strongest restricted Pokemon in the game, people tend to fake out the Miraidon over the Grafire, which is why Miraidon isn't like other Miraidons. My Miraidon's item of choice is the Cover Cloak. With Cover Cloak, secondary effects of attacking moves won't activate on the Pokemon holding it, meaning moves like Fake Out or Icy Wind won't cause a flinch or a -1 speed. So the plan here is Miraidon sets up Terrain, Grafire Electricity goes off, activating Unburden, which allows Grafire to now go first before Miraidon to hit Acid Spray, and then Miraidon nukes whatever it got its defense lower. This is extremely important because one of the best Pokemon and the king of VGC, Incineroar, and this is why Unburden is the favorite ability over Prankster because as mentioned before, Dark Pokemon are immune to Prankster affected moves. Thanks to Unburden, if the king of VGC or his green monkey brother tries to fake out, Grafire can just, Encore it the next turn for free after he most likely knocked out its teammate the first turn thanks to Acid Spray and the Cover Cloak preventing the flinching. Who would have thought that a small monkey who paints the same thing would be the downfall of the mighty king of VGC? Now I want to briefly go over the rest of the team since this video is about Grafire, but I think it helps understand the team better if I explain the rest of the team as well. We'll start with Chi-Yu. Chi-Yu is mainly here just to give Miraidon a helpful boost in netting KOs thanks to its ability, Beats of Ruin, lowering the special defense of everyone around it. We gave it a Choice Scarf so it can outspeed everything, and the best part is that Grafire will still outspeed it once Unburden is activated, so you can Acid Spray and get KOs that way. Next up is Corviknight. His job is really simple in that all I needed for is either Tailwind or to deal with Landorus since Landorus can't hit Corviknight at all, since they always usually carry ground and poison moves. Mineshaw is here because it provides not only a fake out option, but it also allows you to be immune to opposing fake outs and intimidates, so something like the king of VGC has to fear a potential close combat taking it down. It also carries Taunt for Trick Room and Wide Guard because it's also our best answer to not only AoE moves that are coming in this format, but also Terrapagos if we find someone running it. Last but not least, we have Iron Leaves. Honestly, I just wanted to give Iron Leaves a shot, and with the Assault Vest and Attack Booster, this thing has proven to be amazing against a lot of the heavy special hitters. Being able to abuse all the terrains besides Misty, which is rarely seen, is a big boon for it and able to deal with opposing Miraidons. Thanks to the Assault Vest, allowing it to tank its hits, making it a great addition to the team. Now that you know the whole team, I think besides telling you how Grafire works for this format, I want to show you how Grafire did in this Grand Challenge. I honestly think you guys are in for a shock with the battles I'm going to show you. How about we get started? In this first battle, we're up against the Terrapagos balance team. I decided to lead Grafire and Miraidon since this lead actually covers for practically mostly any lead he would decide going. I start by Electro Drifting into the Tornadus and Acid Spraying Terrapagos because I thought it either protected or would have stayed in its shell form to eat up the hit in case it went for a setup. He does go and protect Tornadus and then goes straight for a Terra and a Calm Mind, which wasn't what I expected, but the protect was a good play on his part. Next, I go for the Electro Drift on Tornadus again, bringing it to Sash as Terrapagos protects and Tornadus Tailwinds. This is great because next turn I can go for another Encore, since even with Tailwind I would have gotten that Encore off when it hit Calm Mind and would have locked it in. I do go for the Encore and then go for Dazzling Gleam, finish Tornadus off as he switches in Ogerpon in fear of the Encore lock. This one, looking back, was actually a weird swap out on his part, considering he had Icy Wind, so he technically could have avoided the Encore depending how fast his Tornadus is, which we see is actually faster than my Grafai, but we'll take it as again, the benefit of Grafai is they don't know what it's capable of. As we finish off Tornadus and get some decent damage on Ogerpon, he now switches back into Terrapagos. Due to the Icy Wind from earlier, Grafai isn't faster than Miraidon anymore, so we lose Miraidon to an Ivy Cudgel and Terra Starstorm, but Grafai is able to live and lock it into Starstorm with Encore. We then swap into Mineshaw next, as now that Terrapagos is locked into Terra Starstorm, he knows Wide Guard is now a possibility, so he opts to swap Terrapagos out, which allows me to predict and go for close combat on the incoming Urshifu and get a gunk shot off on Ogerpon, which ends up poisoning Ogerpon and it falls to the poison. He switches into his last Pokemon, Terrapagos. With my Mineshaw now at 1 HP staring down on Urshifu and a Terrapagos, I decided to switch out my Mineshaw so that I can have it for this Terrapagos later, and go for a gunk shot on Urshifu, taking it out as he finally removes my Grafai off the field with an Earth Power. Finally, we now have Iron Eves and Mineshaw out against this lone Terrapagos, and all we have to do now is Sacred Sword and Fake Out, then finish it off with another Sacred Sword in close combat, giving us the win against this Terrapagos and showing just how much value Grafai gave us there with just the threat of Encore and Acid Spray alone. Next up, we're up against the Shadow Rider team. We lead with Miraidon and Chi-Yu against their Raging Bolt and Incineroar. My plan here was simple: go for Draco Meteor on Raging Bolt, while snarling on Chi-Yu to start lowering special attack, but also be locked into it for when Shadow Rider shows up. I opt to not Terra here, as remember, they don't expect Overcloak on Miraidon, which is exactly why he goes for Fake Out on Miraidon and doesn't Terra Raging Bolt, allowing me to knock out Raging Bolt for absolutely free with a Draco Meteor. He switches in his Amoonguss now, which is completely fine, as thanks to electric terrain, he is unable to put anyone to sleep with Spore. I decide to swap out Chi-Yu here and Miraidon out to my Grafai and Mineshaw, since Snarl won't do enough and Miraidon is at -2 from Draco, which to my surprise, he opts for Protect on Amoonguss and knock off on my Grafai slot. This is massive because now I can Encore Taunt lock the Amoonguss from being able to use whatever it gets locked into, as it goes for Rage Powder, which is now stuck into it and also has to struggle due to Taunt. He switches into Calyrex, so I go for close combat into a Amoonguss slot in case the Incineroar does come back, as he protects himself and stays in and uses Struggle on Amoonguss. This is great because now I can lock Calyrex into Protect with Encore and continue to punch through this Amoonguss slot in case Incineroar comes in. But he instead decides to swap Calyrex out into his Incineroar, as I try to Encore the Calyrex into Protect, and I continue going for close combat on his Amoonguss slot, which ends up going down to a combination of close combat and struggle recoil damage. He swaps back into Calyrex Shadow Rider and goes for Fake Out on my Grafai and Astro Barrage to remove Mineshaw off the field, which I wasn't expecting since Grafai is immune and I have Wide Guard threatening him. But you know what, it's completely fine since Grafai now gets to lock Incineroar into the Fake Out, as I snarl with my Chi-Yu that I just swapped in to start taking down this Calyrex. With Grafai locking Incineroar out, I switch Miraidon in and start focusing down this Shadow Rider as it tries to protect itself to try and waste turns of the Encore. But thanks to Grafai's utility giving us full control of the battlefield, we eventually snarl and Electro Drift Shadow Rider, then Incineroar to pick up yet another win with our Grafai, again showing how useful Grafai was for us in this battle. Next, we're up against a Calyrex Ice Rider team. Here we decide to lead Mineshaw and Chi-Yu as they lead Raging Bolt and Ogerpon. I start off with a Fake Out on Raging Bolt and snarl as I predicted Ogerpon to Spiky Shield due to the threat of Fake Out removing Sturdy, which is exactly what he goes for. This lets me know Raging Bolt is most likely a Soul Fist since it didn't protect. I then go for the close combat on Ogerpon to try and take out its Sturdy, but he switches into Volcarona and finally our luck goes downhill. We miss Snarl on Raging Bolt as we also get burned from Flame Body on Volcarona. I decide to switch out my Mineshaw as I miss yet another Snarl on Raging Bolt, and he goes for a Volt Switch onto my Chi-Yu, taking massive damage, and he goes for Tailwind to be able to outspeed my Pokemon. This is rough because if it weren't for the 2 Snarl misses, I wouldn't have lost so much of my health, and if it wasn't for the burn, I could have cleared Volcarona before he got the Tailwind off. He switches into his Calyrex Ice Rider now, and thanks to Tailwind, he's able to outspeed my Miraidon. As this was a fast Calyrex Ice Rider, so I opt to protect and Snarl, hoping we could clear Volcarona. But sadly, even Choice Scarf Chiyu is too slow, and thanks to those early Snarl misses, Chiyu was too low and gets taken out. We swap into Grafaiai now, activating our Electric Seed for the much needed defense boost, and most importantly, our Unburden. So even with Tailwind up, we should still outspeed at the very least Calyrex. I decide to switch Miraidon back into my Burn Mineshaw as he decides to do something insane. Protects Calyrex while fire dancing with Volcarona. This is actually super important because not only does Mineshaw not go down, he decides to switch Raging Bolt in, allowing me to fake out Raging Bolt and locking down his Calyrex with Encore, making Calyrex something we can deal with later. Tailwind finally goes away as I decide to close combat and Gunk Shot his Raging Bolt, knowing Calyrex either has to protect or switch, which he does go into his Rock Pond and Thunderclap my Mineshaw. Grafaiai here comes in clutch with a poison as I switch back into Miraidon to set back my terrain. Now here I actually misplay, which could have cost me the game because I decided to Fairy Terra here when I knew his best option was to Thunderclap and Spiky Shield since Dazzling Gleam would take Raging out. This was a big mistake as I now take a lot of damage I shouldn't have on Miraidon from Thunderclap. But regardless, we do take out Raging Bolt as Rock Bomb does Spiky Shield so that Calyrex can come in and launch a Glacial Lance while Ogerpon goes for Follow Me. I decide to Acid Spray and Dazzling Gleam, which does take out Ogerpon as he goes for the Glacial Lance and Follow Me as said earlier. And Miraidon somehow manages to live at 1 HP, allowing us to Acid Spray and Electro Drift it next turn, securing yet another victory with the combo. I hope I made you guys into Grafaiai believers as this Pokemon has slowly become my favorite in the Paldea region and really did clutch up in the battles where I really needed it to. Of course, if you guys would like to try out the team and end Regulation G with it for a final climb to Master Ball, the rental and pace will go down in the description for you guys to play with. And if you do play it, please let me know how the team does for you. I'd really like to hear how it goes. This was the first time I've ever made a video like this and I hope you guys enjoyed it, as if this video does well, I'll definitely try to make more in the future in this style. Grafaiai really showed its worth and I plan to continue using it into Regulation I in different teams with the double restricted format now that it's been announced. If you guys really did enjoy the video, support me by hitting the subscribe button and liking the video. It actually does help a lot and show me these videos are worth making. On that note, thank you guys again for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace!